Hello, everybody. All right, today we are going to be working on percent equation. Percent equation, we are going to be solving the same types of problems we have been for the last 3 days, except we're going to look at solving them in a different way. And so if you recall, in the last few days, we've been setting at the percent proportion, which is where we put the percent over 100, and we put it equal to the part over the whole. Well, if we manipulate that equation just a little bit, we end up realizing that when we did our cross products, if you will, what you learn is the part is equal to, sorry, I just want to make sure I got that. The part is equal to the percent times the whole. And so instead of writing two fractions, we can go straight to the equation. And so that's exactly what the percent equation does. The only difference with the percent equation that we have to be very careful about is that the percent is never written in the equation as a percent. You have to write the percent as a decimal. And that is one of the most important things that you have to learn about percent equation, because if we don't change it to a decimal, we don't get the right answer. Let's go ahead and look at some examples. So just like with the percent proportion, there's this box here that explains what you should be using, what you're looking for if you're finding different pieces. So for instance, if I'm looking to find the percent, I'm going to write an equation that looks like this. And I'm going to be looking for this n. If I'm looking for find the part, I'm going to be writing an equation that looks like this one. If I'm looking for find the whole, I'm looking for an equation that looks like this. I'm finding the w. So finding the percent and finding the part and finding the whole, that's what we are going to be working on today, just like we did in the last few days. Except instead of writing fractions and writing proportions, we're going to be writing equations. So let's go down. We're actually going to skip to these example problems. So it says, what is 6% of 200? So the first thing we have to look at is, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention up here, if you remember when we did our percent proportion, the part was the same thing as the is, right? And the whole was the same thing as the of, and that's because the part is the percentage and the whole is what it's out of. So part refers to the is and the whole is referring to what it's out of. Okay. So going down here, what is 6% of 200? Well, I want to remind us of the equation we're going to use, and we don't have a ton of room. So it is part equals, I want you to write this down, percent times whole. And so I want you to also write that, remembering this is the is and this is the of. And I also want you to write in decimal form. Okay, so part equals percent times whole. Let's go ahead, let's give this a try. What are we looking for here? Well, what is 6% of 200? Well, we're looking for the part, right? And so this goes back to what we did a while ago. And so we write the part is equal to 0.06 times 200. And that's it. And so if I'm looking for the part, then I just solve this piece, 0.06 times 200. And when I get an answer, I get an answer of 12. Let's go ahead, let's look at B. Find 72% of 50. You'll notice there is no is in this one. It's a different way of looking at the problem and a different way of stating it. But again, if I'm looking to find 72% of 50, I'm looking for the part. So again, I'm going to be looking for the part, and I'm going to be writing my percent as a decimal, and I'm multiplying it times, oh, it's not going to let me, 50. Sorry about that. So I go ahead and I do those two problems, and I get 36. All right. So if you go ahead and you try doing letter C and letter D, again, on these, we're all looking for the is, the part, because it says, what is 14% of 150? Find 50% of 70. What'd you get? If you didn't get it yet, I want you to hit pause and I want you to try it. Okay? You should have gotten 21 for C and 35 for D. All right, let's keep going. All right, so these are going to be a little bit different. This is finding the percent. So we're on page 131, finding the percent. So it says, write an equation for each problem, then solve. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. Okay, again, tenth means I can have one digit after the decimal. Okay, so what percent of 40 is 9? What percent of 40 is 9? Well, I know my part. My part is 9. So 9 is equal to the percent times 40. Well, what do we get here? So when I go to solve this, what percents are a little bit different? For what percents, because when I go ahead to solve this, I'm going to do 9 divided by 40, right? 9 divided by 40 gets me 0.225, right? So it gets me 0.225. But again, this one asks me for the percent. And when I find the answer to a percent problem, I have to remember that that was put in decimal form. So in decimal form, I need to change it back to percent form. So changing it back to percent form would mean by multiplying it by 100, and I would get 22.5%. Let's go ahead and let's look at another one. So this one says 27 is what percent of 150? Again, I don't know the percent. So I know my part and I know my whole. So the part is 27 because it's next to the is, and it says 27 is this percent. Then I have my percent times 150. So to solve this, I'm going to do 27 divided by 150. 27 divided by 150 gets me 0.18. I'm going to write that in this yellow area. But I have to remember that this is percent, and in an equation, it's written in decimal form. So I have to change it back to the percent form by multiplying it by 100, and I get 18%. Okay. So we've done finding the part, finding the percent. Now we're going to practice a couple of finding the whole. So when I look at this problem states 39 is 84% of what number? So I literally write it if you look with all of them, you write it how the equation says. So 39 means equal. 84 cannot be written as a whole number. We have to write it as a decimal, so 0.84 times a number. Well, how do I figure out what that number is? I divide. So I'm going to divide 39 divided by 0.84. 39 divided by 0.84 gets me a really long number, right? So it tells me to round to the tenths place. So because it tells me to round to the tenths place, I'm going to round to 46.4. And that's what my whole is. All right, let's look at this one. So remember how I kind of said, like, if you look at this, the is the equals, the of is the times. Well, we could just write it just like that. So if I wrote 26%, well, 26 can't be written as a whole number because it's a percent, so I have to change it to decimal. Of times what number? N is equals 45. 45. And I just wrote my equation. So then I go ahead and I solve by dividing 45 divided by 0.26, 26 hundredths. And oh, I get a long number again, don't I? So again, I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. And rounding to the nearest tenth, I get 173 and 1/10 because I had to round there. All right, we're going to go ahead and try a couple. And I want to just kind of remind you, feel free to use the words of what you know. The is means equals. The of means times. All right.